let's look at the Bible. Let's look at some leadership principles we can actually get from here. We've spoken about biblical principles throughout, but let's go to the Bible. There was a number of, probably about a year or two ago, I was doing a study through Luke, and it was almost like every verse was jumping out at me, giving me a leadership lesson, almost every verse. And I started jotting down, I took down hundreds of notes of what I call leadership lessons from Luke. And I thought, now's the perfect time to be able to share that out with the world, and we'll share some of them. And so every week until we get through all of these topics, we'll be sharing you some leadership lessons from Luke. And we're not going to be going from beginning to end. We'll pick and try to find things that are consistent with some of the other topics. And what, like Dr. Rod's mentioned, is, the pastors and the youth pastors are all leading a particular way, and we're running churches and doing things, and not just churches, but we're running organizations. We are in leadership, are doing things the way they've always been done. And that's what I believe is one of the biggest risks that we have, is we get caught up in this routine of doing things the way they've always been done and expecting a different result. And they say that, Einstein said that quote is, if you try to do the same thing over again and expect a different result, that's the definition of insanity. No one can actually confirm that was actually his quote, but you know what? I'm sure he said something similar to that, that could be interpreted anyway. And I feel like it's time for us as leaders to make a shift, right? To shift the way, because leadership just isn't working the way it is working right now. And we're seeing far too many being, used and abused, feeling, as we've said today, there's a whole bunch of people that are doing deals behind people's backs and mistrust and not feeling valued, because that's the way leadership is being done in the church and outside of the church, unfortunately. And there's this passage in Luke 5:33 onwards, where Jesus was questioned about fasting. And I'm not going to read the passage. You all know the passage where he says John's disciples, they asked Jesus, John's disciples are all fasting all the time and everything like that. And what should we do? And Jesus says, that's good, but you can't put new wine into old wineskins. You can't, if you've got a new anointing, a new vision, a new pathway, we need to be doing things differently than the way they've always been done. Because if you pour new wine into old wineskin, then it's going to taste like the old wineskin. The wineskin's going to crack, and you're going to lose all your wine. And so he's saying, there's a new way. There's a new way. And here's the thing. The funny thing is we refer to this, and that was Jesus saying that over 2,000 years ago, that there's a new way. And I feel like it's still relevant today that, hey, there's a new way. I feel like we've gotten caught up in a way of leadership that's not conducive to growing people, to investing in people. We kind of been caught up in this driving towards our vision and building our thing and gathering everything together for ourselves. And not intentionally, but as a byproduct, people do tend to feel used and abused and unfulfilled. And that's why you see so many people hurt from poor leadership. And that's why we're on a mission to eradicate poor leadership. But there's another example of that in Luke 6:1, where...
Oh yeah, this is where Jesus got caught out healing someone on the Sabbath.
That's right. Yeah, sorry. I had a bunch of different stories running through my mind. Yes. Yeah, so Jesus was caught.
You couldn't cut your toenails on the Sabbath either. There were so many rules that said this is work and you're not allowed to work on the Sabbath.
Yeah. And Jesus refocused them back and says, but is it better to love someone or not? And so Jesus healed someone on the Sabbath, and all the Pharisees were sitting in the background just going, well, hold on a second, that's not the way it's been done. And this is our rules, and this is the way it's meant to be done, and everything like that. And they missed an opportunity to help someone be healed. They missed an opportunity to bless someone. They missed an opportunity to help someone grow because they were stuck in their old ways. And so it's kind of my, one of our first lessons from leadership lessons from Luke is, I encourage you is, stop doing it the way it's always been done. Look, there's a new, fresh way. Let's invest in people. Let's help those people grow around us. Let's not get caught up into the traditions of how it's always been done. Let's look for new ways. So, Dr. Rod, what's your take on those lessons that Jesus shares?
Well, the headings in our Bibles, I guess, point to it, that we've got to stop doing the old thing and look at the new. I've heard it said numerous times that one of the reasons why we have so many denominations is that a group of people get a revelation, a new vision, and then after that they're not prepared to change it. And so instead of a denomination developing, it stays the same and a new denomination arises. And according to some people, we've got close to 40,000 different denominations around the world now. Now, I don't think God's got a particular problem with the number of denominations, but he might have a problem with the fact that we develop a pattern, we develop doctrines and so on, and then we're not really prepared to relook at those in the light of the evidence which is coming forward. And so I think it is important that we look at what we're doing now and say, look, is there something about what we're doing now that needs to change to make us more effective in God's service?
That's really good.
Depending, I suppose, on your own denominational background, it seems to me that God's primary purpose in the world is one, that he would be glorified, because that's how the world will notice that God exists. This one true, all-powerful, almighty, all-loving God exists. And the other is the redemption of creation, which includes obviously humanity, but I think all of God's creation as well. So we need to be asking ourselves, is what we're doing today appropriate to glorify God in the world? And is it placing us in the right position and posture to allow God to use us in his unfolding story of redemption, which will only, of course, be fully consummated at the second coming of Jesus? The issue for the Pharisees here, the issue that Jesus was really, I think, hinting at, is that because of their traditions, they had missed the purpose of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Now, me with my sort of business spectacles on, I see the purpose of the Sabbath as withdrawing from the daily grind, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if you have a look at what happened on the Sabbath, it was about building relationship with God and with one another. And so the test of whether or not someone is breaching the Sabbath rules surely must be, if they're following the Sabbath, they must be withdrawing from the daily grind of commerce and work and all those sorts of things, and they should be focusing on their relationship with God and with one another. Now, although I think the New Testament Sabbath is something different than a particular day in the week, and we see that in the book of Hebrews, but I still think there is value in us drawing aside from the daily grind, so to speak, not just doing nothing, but focusing on our relationship with God and, importantly, with one another. Now, if I've heard a pastor say, for example, Sunday church is the main thing, and I'm thinking, really? What that means is you've got all these people who work 5 or 6 days a week, and then you want to wear them out on Sunday as well.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's how it ought to be done.
No.
And of course, I personally know many, many people who are no longer engaged in church because Sunday church burnt them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And rightly or wrongly, in our own church, we state about the people who volunteer, we'll guarantee we won't burn you out. And that also means, as a pastor, I can't burn out either.
Yep.
And we need to understand that the primary purpose for Sunday actually isn't Sunday, it's Monday.
Yeah.
I believe strongly in how important it is for the church, that is, the people of God, to gather together in local assemblies on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day of the week your tradition identifies. You need to do that. That's what we call the church gathered. Very important, because we thrive in community. We need that community. But what we need to recognise is that we're sending our people out for the other 6 days of the week.
Yeah.
And one of the things about leadership is that the leadership of the church assemblies needs to understand that it's not, they're not here for our benefit. We're here for their benefit. We're here to equip them for the works of service that God has. And that's what purpose is about.
Yeah.
We're here to help them find their purpose as ones who are sent out from the assembly.
Yeah.
And I think, well, we don't want to get too theological, but often people say, well, ecclesia, that word ecclesia, that's about the people who make up the church, and therefore the institutional gathering together is not really all that important. I disagree with that, because actually the ecclesia refers to people who are assembled for a purpose or who are called out for a purpose. So I don't see how you can dismiss that institutional gathering together in an assembly of one kind or other on Sunday or Saturday or whatever other day it is. I think that's important. And part of the reason why we do that is to help our people find their purpose when we actually send them out into the world. I don't know whether that's a good answer to your question, but
no, it's good. Like, I think that the leadership principle here is actually really important. Is obviously not doing things, going back to like the original point of not doing things the way that they've always been done just because the way they've always been done. I think it's a very good point that you bring up about the denominations. I make this observation a lot, is that yes, these denominations, they get an amazing revelation and then they just get stuck almost in a time capsule around this thing. And it's like the Bible clearly says we all know in part and prophesy in part. So why couldn't we, like, I believe I've been given a fresh revelation, a new revelation, a new wineskin around leadership. That doesn't mean I negate all past leadership principles and stuff like that. No, my revelation is simply building on. But there's been incredible influences. You know, people like John C. Maxwell and Dave Ramsey, and there's incredible giants of the faith that have incredible leadership programs and incredible leadership experiences. I'm not negating any of their stuff and saying, well, their way is wrong and my way is right. No, their way was great. I believe that we've been given a fresh revelation of that, and I'm building on what they've taught. We base a lot of our principles on their things, but then take it to the next level. It's not, that stuff is no longer worthy. This is the only way to do leadership. It's like, no, we all need, I'm standing on their shoulders. And that's kind of what leadership should be. I hope that I set a foundation that eventually people will get another revelation. They'll stand on my shoulders. That's what I hope. I hope that they then carry it forward in a new revelation as well. Because we've all got something to add, not necessarily become a silo away from, God, Paul writes that we're one body but many parts. We can't operate in isolation. We're all kind of there to be able to help and build and grow on that. But the other leadership principle that you then led into, which I think was beautiful, was taking a break. It is so important for us as leaders about rest. Let's say rest, because that's what the Sabbath is all about. I know for me as a leader, when I'm kind of caught up and with too many commitments and too many things to do, and I don't rest properly on the Sabbath, on Sunday or whatever day's your Sabbath, if I just go to church and then I come home and then I have to get work done or happen to be out and catching up and do anything like that, if I don't actually rest on Sunday, I'm okay for the next week. Maybe if I miss it the week after, I'm starting to deteriorate. I notice that over time, if I'm not getting that weekly rest, like spiritual rest, I'm grumpier. I'm not as patient. I don't lead my family. I don't lead my wife. I don't lead my organization properly because I start getting tired. And so it's really important for us as leaders to rest. But also we need to, you mentioned about, us, in ministry, causing people to serve on Sunday as well. So they're working 5-6 days and then working on Sunday as well in a volunteer capacity. I don't believe that that's isolated just to the ministry. It's obviously highlighted in the ministry, but I believe that there's a lot of leaders in organizations, whether it be business, corporation, volunteer organizations, that we tend to forget that we need to manage the rest of the people we're leading as well. I remember when we planted the church campus, there was one thing that I was very adamant about, and I was very protective of my volunteers, of my team, because I wanted to make sure I managed their energy levels. I understood that it was my life. The church was my world. Like, I lived and breathed it. But I know that they had other lives to go home to. And so I actually set a rule in place that whenever I appointed someone to a volunteer role, whether it be leadership or even just volunteering in a role, I set out a very basic roles and responsibility, a position description that just simply outlined, this is how much hours I'm expecting you to spend on Sunday. This is how many hours is expected during the week. Can you commit to that? And then on top of that, what I did is I only allowed people to ever serve in one area. Because most people get caught up and they're like, I'll serve on the welcome team, and then I'm on the worship team, and then I'm, in kids ministry or whatever. But then you're getting, every week you're serving somewhere else. And obviously we're talking church context, but this goes in organizations as well. You have to, as a leader, you have to manage your own rest and manage the rest of the people you're leading, because I guarantee you, they won't speak up for themselves. They look up to you as a leader. They've kind of sacrificed and kind of thrown themselves on the sword, so to speak, for you. And that's a responsibility that we carry as a leader. We need to be very, very careful that we don't take advantage. I know you don't intentionally mean to take advantage, but we can easily take advantage of these people because they are attracted to you as a leader, your energy, your charisma, but also the vision that God's given you. They're attracted to that, and so we have a responsibility to manage their energy levels as well. So
we do. Yes, we do.
So look, we've been going for a lot longer than we were expecting to. Like Dr. Rod said, we always tend to go over. So this has been an incredible talk. And look, if you want to learn more like leadership lessons and leadership principles from a biblical perspective, from Dr. Rod and myself, and other people from our team will be joining us as well here on the Cube Leadership Podcast. Please, would you consider subscribing? Like this video if you've seen some value in it. And hey, if you're wanting some leadership development for you, for your team, for your church, for your organization, I encourage you, jump onto OnPurposeCUBED.com and check out our free leadership development. And I'll put all the links and everything below. But Dr. Rod, as always, it has been an absolute honor sharing with you. Thank you so much for you sharing your wisdom. And hey guys, if you've got any questions, any comments or ideas about the things that we've mentioned, put a comment below and we'd love to be able to hear what you say. But we look forward to seeing you next week in episode 2 of On the Cube Leadership Podcast. Have a spectacular week. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from our On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you'd like to see the full episodes, check out our YouTube channel and consider subscribing.